We have South Carolina taking on Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt right now in the AP is number 24. CFP rankings come out on Tuesday. 3.5 point spread. This game is taking place in Nashville, if I'm not mistaken. And so, what are the feelings for Vandy, who's currently bowling? South Carolina looking to be able to be bowling. If they win this game, they're going bowling. That man Beamer gonna play in a bowl game. What are the feelings for this game?
It's a feeling of momentum on both sides, right? Vanderbilt feels like they were doubted coming into this year, like most people were. They're overperforming to expectations. They're pumped. I mean, South Carolina, the locker room after the game, the morale is insanely high after an absolute beatdown against A&M last week. It's both teams that I feel like you can't really, it's tough to pick against because South Carolina looking extremely dominant in games and the defense looks unstoppable. Vanderbilt capturing lightning in a bottle where it's like, when will the magic run out? It's tough because you have two teams just with such high momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Vanderbilt did a really good job of locking up, Peyton Thorne and Keandre Lambert-Smith last week against Auburn. I think for this game, they're going to have, it's obvious, but they're going to have a much more, heavier challenge with this rushing attack compared to what Auburn is able to offer on the ground and in the air. South Carolina has a similar archetype to A&M where they double down on the run. And we saw that on Saturday, 2 touchdowns from Sanders, 2 touchdowns from Norris. Or Lenore Sellers, this Vanderbilt defense, they're going to kind of have to face a piece of their own medicine in that rushing attack.
Yeah, and it depends on who shows up from South Carolina because Texas A&M didn't get the Lenore Sellers who throws the ball off his own helmet for a fumble. They got the guy who breaks 12 tackles and you can't catch him. You can't catch him behind the line. Like
he ain't falling backwards. He's going to fall forward.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was unstoppable when it comes to bringing him down. Strong is a strong guy in Raheem Sanders in same vein. You can't bring these guys down. Now, who shows up in this game because South Carolina showed different faces throughout the season. The turnover heavy South Carolina didn't show up last week. We saw it happen on the field, but it wasn't the ugly turnovers like we saw that took them out of the didn't take them out of the game against Alabama, but we saw some things that just from they could have won that game had it not gone that way. So It depends on what side Vandy gets, but they are run heavy in their own right.
Yeah, they definitely are. And, right now, of course, we've a lot of the stories went on to get Diego Pavia, what he's been able to do for this team, the leadership he's brought to that locker room and what you see on the field. What would you say are the keys for Vanderbilt's offense to be able to, go at this South Carolina defense? You love this South Carolina defense.
I do.
So, what do you think Vanderbilt has to do? And how do you expect South Carolina's defense to perform?
It'll be interesting because what Vanderbilt likes to do is get outside the pocket. South Carolina is going to be they're going to do very, very well at setting the edge. Dylan Stewart, Kyle Kennard, they're going to set the edge. They're going to make it tough for Pavia to play his style of football. The DBs in South Carolina are doing well. Fortune, Kilgore, my guy, Eamon Wari, playing well. And it's all about when Vanderbilt wins games, it's when eyes focus on Pavia and they miss their mark. So for Vanderbilt, can you continue to have that? Will South Carolina's DBs trust the front? Will they trust the guys to make the plays where they don't need to make that and they can keep their eyes on their guy? Or are they going to take their eyes off the ball, let their guys get open? I think that's the key for Vanderbilt in this game against the South Carolina defense is get guys out of position. I mentioned it in previous games for Vanderbilt. When you get outside the pocket, you throw guys out of position. I think South Carolina, though, has guys that they're tenured. South Carolina is one of the most tenured teams in college football.
Yep. And look, and they definitely have that veteran presence. You see it. I think on the offensive side for Vanderbilt, we need to see more from Cedric Alexander in this game. We need to see more from AJ Newberry, both the running back position. That rushing attack is what allows Pavia to build in the air. For them against South Carolina, for Vanderbilt, I would say it's really limiting big plays. Like we talked about that rushing attack, but we saw some really big runs from Raheem Sanders in this game that got a lot of momentum built for them. If you make them earn every yard and kind of slow these drives down, that's where more opportunities present themselves for turnovers. That's where they find themselves fumbling the ball, find themselves turning over the ball. I think if they can prevent bigger plays from happening, that gives them the game control back and it allows for Vanderbilt to do what they do best, which is hold the ball, manage the clock, and they're one of the better teams in the country right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Vanderbilt, if you can force turnovers here, we know that they're prone to doing it. It's just forcing. I think each team would like to force the other to play traditional football. Like
Yep.
sit in the pocket and throw the ball. If whichever team can force the other to do that and take them out of their element, South Carolina I think is going to be more proficient at that
Yeah.
game if it gets to that. It's interesting though, for running backs for Vanderbilt, Alexander I think was a little bit banged up going into Auburn, but it showed if you can one-dimensionalize this Vanderbilt team and force it to be a Pavia running and throwing the ball. I think South Carolina looks good in this one. Right now, the defense it was too dominant last week.
Yep.
And the offense played too well for me to say anything against this Gamecocks team.
I completely understand that, right? And I feel like what I love about this game the most is that both of these teams have played really close games and found a way to win. Both of these teams have had games where they've dominated as well, right? So it doesn't feel like their performances have been an anomaly. There's a pattern here. South Carolina's played close games like LSU but lost, but they've also played close games with other teams and won, right? Vanderbilt's in the same vein. In this one, I'm rolling with the Commodores.
Okay.
I like them 28-17. I think that they find a way to make the key stops. It will be close, but I like the Commodores in this one.
Okay. All right. I'm on the flip side. I like South Carolina. I think 30-16. I think that they cover. I think that they look strong, especially in the red zone and down the field. I think that they force Vanderbilt into a couple of field goals. The point total in this game at 45.5. While I'm close to that on the over, I do think that the game could go exceptionally over this, even though they do have good defenses on South Carolina. Right now, I think that this game could exceed the 45.5.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, right? And so it should be a fun one. Hunter has South Carolina. I got the Commodores. Either way, one of these teams will find themselves continuing to win. Another team might be bowling.